And hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Dana. I forgot to ask where in the world you are. Is that okay to say?
Edmonton, Alberta.
You said Edmonton, Alberta?
Yep.
Canada. Wonderful.
Canada.
A leaf. Wonderful. I don't think I've spoken to anyone from Canada yet. So this is good. I'm getting true international reach. Anyway, our friend Dana here's going to share a dream with us. I'm going to listen. We'll ask some questions and then we'll talk about it. So I'm ready whenever you are. Go ahead.
Okay. So I woke up entering into my father's house and I had a bag of stuff with me. But I wasn't wearing much clothing, and I was immediately taken to the basement by my stepmother, where I could see like writing on the walls and stuff from other people who had stayed there before me. And the way that she took me down there was like, here's the guest room, she didn't say anything, but it felt like I was being invited in and I was going to stay there for a few days. And so she went back upstairs without having said anything. And I knew that they were upstairs because I could hear them. But I was downstairs, like in this new space, looking at all of the writings and drawings that didn't make sense, like they weren't in English. But I could tell that these other people were trying to put their stories on the walls. And so I felt obligated to read them while I was waiting. And days passed, and I only know because the lights were turned on and off. But nobody talked to me, and I don't recall a passing of time. Do you know what I mean? So on the third day, what felt like the third day, my stepmother has a loud conversation. It's the first words that and she's talking to him, but his voice sounds like it's through a wall. Her voice is clear. Her voice says, we have to do something about her. We have to decide how we're going to get rid of her. We need to shoot her. I don't know if that sounds... And he's just agreeing with everything that she says, muffled through this wall. Like, I could tell that it was him, but his voice was off. So they kind of talk back and forth for a second about when she's going to come down and shoot me, because now they're for sure going to come and shoot me. And she says, okay, if it's easier for you, I'll wait until tomorrow. And then he agrees, just like he's agreed with everything else. And then there's no noise from upstairs again, except the footsteps. I can hear her walking around. So then the night passes, but I don't sleep in my dream. It's just as if I'm awake waiting that entire time. And I hear her come down the stairs the next morning. There's no conversation about whether it's morning or whether it's time to... It's just her walking down the stairs, and I immediately know what's coming. I know she's coming to kill me. I feel like I'm about to die, and I'm okay with that. And then she stands at the landing and kind of crouches around the corner, like the stairs come down to a landing and then down to the basement, and she's like doing this weird crouching thing in the corner of that V shape, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it's so weird because the gun she's holding is so small in her hand that it only takes 3 fingers for her to hold it. But her other hand, it takes the entire other hand to hold her wrist. So she's intent on shooting me from this landing into the rooms that I'm in. And she misses every shot, like a stormtrooper. It's almost... like, it's impossible for her to have missed me. I'm a very large woman. But I feel the last bullet that she shoots, because she's frustrated. At the last bullet, I could hear her, like, get mad that now she has to go back upstairs. You could hear, like, the muffled frustration. in like the way that she's breathing. Just, I know my stepmother. I've heard that sound hundreds of times before. So she makes the frustrated sound, and I feel the air of the last shot brush against my cheek. And so I rush at her, thinking like, this is the time. Like, if I'm going to ever get away from here, this is going to be the moment. And I punch her in the face. I punch her in the face, and I take her teeny tiny little gun, which feels incredibly heavy, and I take it up to confront my father. Like, I don't even stop on the landing to talk to her. I go straight up to my dad. And he just looks at me, expressionless, like he doesn't even know who I am. Like, there's no connection between, hey, that's my daughter, just a stranger. He just looks at me and he says, it needed to be done. So I try to leave through his door, which goes out the back. But it's nailed shut for some reason. So I go to the kitchen. The kitchen windows are nailed shut. I go to the landing to try and leave through the front door. The front door is nailed shut. So I go back into the basement and I punch out the window in the basement to crawl out. And it doesn't shatter. It's not like glass. It's like plexiglass. The whole thing comes out at once. So I crawl through this hole and I go up the road, which is a road I've never seen before. And it's about 50 feet. It's not very long. And at the end of this road is like this bustling center. I don't know if it's a homeless shelter or a bus station, but it's got lots of people around it. And I go straight to the payphone. And as I'm walking to the payphone, this woman comes out of the crowd and she's mad already. I haven't done anything. She's already mad. And as I'm nearing the payphone, she grabs my bag and she starts like yanking my bag. Like she's just trying to take it. And so I yank it out of her hand and she starts screaming obscenities at me. Fuck you. This is mine. You can't just steal things, bitch. Like, I came with this bag and this is mine. And it was like this rollaway luggage bag. Like, so she's got the handle that's attached to the suitcase, and I've got like the extendable part that's plastic. So we're literally wrestling over this bag with one hand, me with one hand, her with two hands. And I use the payphone to call the police. The police tell me to go outside and wait for them to show up. And the entire time, like, as I'm walking out of this center, she's like trying to wrestle the bag from me. She's like stopping people. She's got my bag. She's taking my bag. And they are just uninterested. They just continue walking. They don't even, I know that they have faces, but they don't like make signs of concern. They're not trying to help her in any way. They just look, and then they look at me, and then they just keep walking, kind of thing. So we make it out of the center, and she won't let go of my bag. She's being absolutely confrontational in a way it's just swear words. Like, I don't want to say it because it's just her just screaming swear words all the time. So I charge at her like I charged at my stepmother, and she like gets spooked and runs up the road and crawls through the window that I just left in my dad's house. And as she like turns and looks at me, like she's in the basement now, she turns and looks at me, and I just feel this fear and dread, like I've just killed her. Like she's gone back into the place where I was supposed to die, and now she's going to. And that's when I wake up. And I know when I wake up that the woman struggling for the luggage is my biological mother because I've seen her pictures. But in the dream, I don't know, like she's just a crazy lady. I don't recognize her until after I wake up. That's it.
A lot of good stuff. You saw me tearing off pages frantically, trying to keep up. That is some great imagery. I love it. So my process is we just go back through it again. I try to refer to my notes, and we try to get dig a little deeper, get some more imagery and specifics, and also try and put me more fully in the dream. So as much as possible, I can try to experience what you did and see if I can connect some dots in there for you. So if we start there, you said you woke up in your father's house. So this experience of waking up was, of course, you woke up in the dream.
Yeah. So
where were you when that happened?
I was on the landing at the entranceway door.
Okay. Well, so when you say woke up, you didn't have the experience of I've been asleep. That was your, say, maybe metaphorical way of saying I became aware of myself in the dream at that moment?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was more of okay, I'm at my dad's house.
Did this place look like what his house actually looks like in real life?
No, because he's only ever been a renter. He's never had a house.
But you just knew this is my dad's house. This is where he lives.
I just knew it was my dad's house. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's pretty common in dreams. Is how did you know that thing was that thing? I just knew it. Okay. So sometimes you just know things. Sometimes it's identifiable physically. It's like, yes, that was actually the house. I don't know that it's always necessarily important. It's kind of the knowing tends to be the critical element. And you said you had a bag of your own stuff with you. You were already carrying belongings with you?
Yeah.
Was this the same bag that you later struggled with the woman over?
No.
Different bag. What was this bag? How would you describe it?
So the bag that I came with, it kind of was like a garbage bag, but it was made out of linen. And it had like toys and books in it, not clothing.
Okay. Okay. And you said you were wearing very little clothing in terms of because it was
like
hot,
shorts and a tank top.
just hot weather out. Like you would dress in summer.
Yeah. So it felt like summer outside, and the road was very dusty. So I knew that it was hot, but I didn't feel warm. I didn't feel cold either. There was no
Sure.
Yeah, it was just shorts and a tank.
So you had a sense that the clothing you were wearing was appropriate to the weather.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel? Is this something you would normally wear? You would feel comfortable in wearing in public, say?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. You didn't feel vulnerable or exposed in that outfit necessarily?
Not until I tried to leave the basement. Because when I left the basement, I was no longer wearing clothes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, we'll get to that. That's probably important, yes. So can you kind of describe a little bit how did you knock and they answered the door? Or did you open it and walk in?
No, I came to in the house on the landing.
Oh, when you say landing, this is the landing in the basement?
Yeah, no. So the way that the stairs were oriented was there was a small stairway going up to the first floor, and there was a small stairway going down to the basement.
So you actually,
and I was on the landing.
So you were actually inside the house. You weren't outside knocking on the door trying to get in.
Yeah,
okay.
I was already inside. And I don't recall coming up to the door or being greeted inside or anything like that. It was just the landing.
Okay. Fair enough. That helped. Yeah, that definitely helps me get a better visual image of it. That's why I ask. So at what point were you standing on the landing when your stepmother approached you, or did you move through the house somewhere to meet her?
She was standing at the top of the landing already when I realized that I was there.
Was there any kind of exchange between you two verbally or?
Not verbally, no, but she looked at me and I knew that she wanted me to go to the basement.
Okay. Okay. Um, can you describe a little bit about what that process was like? What you saw as you moved in that direction? Did she lead? Did you lead, and she followed you?
No, it was like, it was kind of like she was just going to watch and make sure that I went downstairs because that's where I was supposed to go. And so when I went down the basement stairs, there was this door frame. Uh, how do I describe it? It was like a one-way, not a mirror, but once you went through the doorway, you couldn't get back out again without permission. Like once you went through this doorway, you weren't coming out.
Okay.
But it wasn't a door. It was just the frame. Like I
Kind of a
don't know how to
one way
describe it.
passage. Yeah, no, there was that feeling
Yeah,
of this is some kind of a boundary line where once you
yeah,
cross it, there's no uncrossing it.
yeah.
Okay,
She
it had
didn't
that kind
need
of
to come
significant feeling.
downstairs to make sure that I went through because once I went through, I wasn't coming back out again. So she could just stand there and watch me.
Sure. Okay. And so she never actually went fully down into the basement
No,
herself,
never.
and it didn't seem like she did throughout the dream. She even stopped on the landing with the gun. That so she
She
never actually
made
came
sure to
down.
not come into the basement. Yeah,
She made sure not to pass that boundary herself.
yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And at that point, so you went in on your own. Did you have? You said you knew that it was a kind of one-way barrier or boundary line, and you crossed it willingly or under
Yep.
duress, or
No,
how?
it was
What was the
willingly.
feeling?
Like I
Okay,
just, I knew that I was supposed to, and so I did.
it was kind
Like it
of
was very, it wasn't even a decision.
okay.
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm digging for. Just a little bit. Is it trying to wrap my brain around it? Not that you're explaining it badly or anything, but from my understanding is, you weren't pushed through,
No,
but there was a sense of expectation that this is the path you were supposed to follow, and you were okay with it. You didn't have any hesitancy. You weren't afraid of it
it wasn't.
necessarily.
It wasn't so much okay. It was I was expected to, and so I must. Like,
Okay, so it was almost like you felt obligated to
yeah,
go in that direction.
like I knew what she wanted, and so I had to do that.
Okay. And when you got down there, so she never crossed the barrier. Did she watch you for a while, or did she almost immediately leave?
I think she stood at the top of the stairs while I was putting the bag down, but I don't know when she left necessarily because there were no sounds from upstairs until after the passage of time.
Okay.
So
So at some point during settling yourself in this space and having a look around, you lost awareness
her
of her, and she
presence was
had
just
gone,
gone.
and she
Yeah.
left. Okay. Um, all right. And this is one of my favorite things. I managed to do it 3 times in a row. Now that I'm paying attention to it, I'm probably going to fuck it up. But can I tear the paper straight without? Oh, I love it. I love it. It's one of my little. It's one of my little things that just makes me happy. I don't know why. But if I find something that makes me happy and it's harmless, I don't argue. I'll take it. That's what I say.
Absolutely.
Right? uh, okay, so there was a process then also to identifying your surrounding in the basement, and you, if you could kind of just give a brief, maybe description again of where you went, how you, the order of which you observed things, just to kind of give me a visual
Sure.
picture. Yeah.
So there's like two rooms to this area. Um, there's no doors. but there was a door frame, so I could tell the difference between the front room, which was large, and the back room, which was small. I was like, I knew that the small back room was for sleeping, but there was no bed. There was also no writing in that room.
You said there
The large,
was no bed in the small room?
yeah, there's no bed.
Sleep at
I
no
just,
bed. Okay.
I knew I was supposed to sleep there because that was the one with the carpet on the floor.
Okay.
Just
And then there was also no writing on the walls
there's no
in
writing.
the smaller room. Do you remember any colors, sounds, smells in this area and any other sensory information?
In the large room, all of the writing had different colors, which is how I knew it was from different people.
Okay.
But I don't remember any smell.
Fair enough. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's actually very rare. I mean, visual imagery and sounds like make up 80-90% of what people experience. And there's that tiny fraction of people, very, very few, who actually do, touch also, although that shows up less often, but that's still far more prevalent than smelling things or tasting things. Those are very rare in dreams. I don't know why. I don't have a theory on that, but it's something I find fascinating. Why is that?
The only time I ever dreamt about smell is when I quit smoking. I had a dream about smoking, and I
Yep.
could feel and smell and taste it.
Like, oh, I miss this. I get you. Okay, so are you able to? So you knew that multiple different people had been there. Did you have an estimate of how many different colors of writing there were? Like there were 3, there were 7, there was more than 20.
More than 20.
Okay.
Probably more than 100. It looked like a rainbow of just calligraphy everywhere. And I could read it, but it didn't look like English.
Okay.
And they weren't sad or angry messages. They were just kind of like, I was here, like Donna was here. It looked like what you would put on like the underside of a mattress at camp. Do you know what I mean? Like just to say that you had been here.
Announcing
Everybody
your presence.
was putting, yeah. It didn't look
almost like signing a guest book in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. That was going to be another question I had for you, was what was the content of the messages? They weren't trying to necessarily tell you something. There weren't like, it was just people announcing their presence, but there was many of them.
Lots.
Did you have a feeling about the messages at that time, about seeing so many of them? Was it reassuring? Was it fearful? Was it puzzlement?
Yeah, I think it was more puzzlement.
Okay.
Like what had I just stepped into? Because I had never seen this room before, and it felt like I had been to my dad's all the time.
Okay. So the messages themselves were almost neutral, just an expression of existence in a way. This person was here. There's proof. But then the feeling you got about it afterwards was or the feeling you got when you saw it was kind of a confusion of like, what? But then upon having that confusion, did that then feel reassuring or kind of fearful, or like you mentioned, what have I stepped into?
Yeah, it was kind of like, what are all these words? And then once I started reading them, I was like, oh, these people were just here. Like they were just the ones that came before me, and I spent the 3 days reading all of these messages, every single one. That's the part that stands out to me.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Do you remember having a sense of why it was important to read all the messages?
Just that I needed to know who was here before me.
Did you get a sense that knowing that would give you some kind of result specifically?
I think that I started reading hoping for an answer, but when one didn't come immediately, I just kept reading because I couldn't stop until I was done. Like I had to make sure that I'd seen all of the messages, because if I left one out, it wouldn't be good.
Okay. Where did we go there? Da, da, da. And then you said you spent that kind of entire time. Do you remember having done anything with the belongings you were carrying?
No, I just put them in a corner. I just put them in the corner of the room that I was supposed to sleep in that had no writing, and I came right back out to the writing room. Like I remember putting my belongings down,
You're like, this is
but
where
I
I'm going to
don't.
sleep, so this is where I'll put my stuff. And now back to what is that stuff?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I was just started reading the messages. I spent the entire 3 days reading the messages. I never put my stuff away.
Okay. Never kind of settled in to that situation, so to speak. Like I said, you
I
never put
think
your stuff
putting my
away.
bag down was as much settling as I was going to do anyway,
Sure.
because it was a small bag. There was no like furniture to put anything anywhere.
Yeah.
I think just dropping my stuff there was the only thing I could have done.
Sure. No, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Then again, there could have been more. You could have and I very precisely arranged these things in this manner.
Oh yeah,
If that was a
yeah,
thing,
true.
if you did that, of course you didn't, and that's fine. But that might have been something.
It
That's
was still in the bag, and I just chucked it onto the floor.
Yeah, set it aside. It's kind of an interesting. I mean, we'll get back around to this. Maybe an interesting idea that you brought this stuff with you, and as if the purpose of the stuff was to put it in the small room, but not do anything with it, or that was its destination. That's the reason it was with you, was to leave it there. But then for you to move on and do something else that was more important than saying putting things away in any particular manner. I don't know. I mean, we'll get there, or we won't. We'll see. We'll see what we dig up. Um, you said days passed with no interaction, and you only knew that because the lights were turned on and off. So there was kind of a artificial day-night cycle that.
Yeah, so the window didn't have any light because it was like a, how do I explain it? It was like safety glass that was opaque.
Oh,
Like it was white, but you couldn't tell whether it was light or dark outside. What
okay.
actually showed me the passing of time was my stepmother would turn off the lights at night and turn them on in the day.
And you had the sense that it was specifically her, or did you see her come down the
I
stairs and hit a switch?
No, I didn't see anything or hear any footsteps. There was no, I just knew it was her controlling the lights.
Okay.
Like she had me go in the basement. It was her job to take care of me while I was down there, and she was just I don't know, making it happen.
Just following through on that process, whatever her obligation was or her responsibility in that process. She was just making it
Yeah.
happen. Fair enough. And you said you had no interaction beyond that, and no real awareness of time, although you were able to count the lights on, lights off, lights on, lights off. Okay, day-night cycles. And then you said was it during that period of time that you heard voices upstairs, or was it at the end of that time that you suddenly became aware of voices?
It was the end of that time. So the last time that the lights were turned on is when I heard the footsteps first. And it was like she had walked through the kitchen area to my dad's room to talk to him at his door, but not actually go into his room.
Okay. And you were able to hear her most clearly.
Clear.
Okay.
It was as if she was in the room with me. It was super clear.
But your father's responses were what were muffled, almost like you were hearing her almost as if she was in the room with you, but him as if he's behind a closed door. And you're
as if he's behind like walls.
okay.
Like it was very. It was not just muffled, but it had that kind of like echoey quality that you get from like spying on people next door almost.
Sure, where you're just not quite able to make out the words, but you can identify the voice and that they're speaking.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And this is where she was saying, try as much as possible to take me through the exact, and I know it's a dream and it's you're working with memories, but the exact phrasing and the pattern of response, that kind of thing. We'll take some time on that.
I know the topic of discussion for the most part, but the only words that I know that she said were, "We have to take care of her. Are we going to shoot her?" And these are different sentences at different times during the conversation. "Are we going to shoot her? Are you sure I can shoot her? Do you want me to wait for one more day?"
Okay.
The rest of the conversation is just the theme of like getting rid of me.
Gotcha. And I'll apologize
And
to anyone who's listening to the podcast here. There's long delays as I scribble. It works better on video, but I've been, anyone listening, I've got a podcast thing now. I convert all these to audio. It's up on iTunes and TuneIn Radio, working on some other sources. I got a web page. I've been busy. I haven't done a lot of videos lately, but I've been busy trying to spread myself out there, see if I can get some more folks interested in listening.
That's good. I enjoyed the 3 I listened to. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you. I kind of hope it catches on. I mean, I enjoy this, and I think it's entertaining and beneficial to the people I interview, and I think other people might enjoy it. At least I hope so. Gotta find the right folks who find it an interesting subject, and we'll see if I can build an audience. So, but back to you. That's enough about me. So the general theme was that you needed to be gotten rid of for whatever reason. Did you ever have a sense of what that reason was?
Yeah.
No idea why that would be a subject of conversation, huh? Fair enough. Yeah.
But the entire time that I was there, she hadn't fed me. Like I remember feeling hungry.
Okay.
And I didn't complain. Do you know what I mean? Like I knew not to complain about needing to use the washroom. There was no bathroom down there. There's no food. There was no like air conditioning or heat during the night. Like it didn't feel like temperature had changed, but it felt like she could have done more to take care of me in that space, and nothing was provided.
Mm.
And I think she was getting frustrated with having to take care of the lights. It's like, that's the only thing that she did the entire time. And she was already upset that she had to take care of me for these days.
Did you have an idea? You say you knew not to complain. Did you have an idea that something bad would happen if you did? Or that just nothing would happen? What complaints weren't going to be heard?
I don't think I had an understanding of what would happen. I just knew that I shouldn't.
Okay. Okay. Where does that take us there? So at some point, or at least during the stepmother's questioning of your father through the muffled behind walls, you got a sense that he was responding. You could hear him, and what he was doing was primarily just agreeing with whatever she wanted.
Yeah, just agreeing with everything she said.
Okay. And so at some point you got the idea that a decision was reached, that now was the time, and when she came down the stairs to get it done.
Yeah.
Hear the footsteps. And so that's what you heard is, well, yeah. And then after that conversation, you said another night passed, or no?
Yeah,
Okay, one
so
more night.
they had the conversation, and then I heard for the rest of the day her moving around upstairs. But there was no more conversation. It was just a day of reading the messages on the far right wall, listening to them just move around.
Now, is this rereading messages, or you hadn't
I hadn't done that wall yet.
hadn't
So
finished?
it seemed like I was going to run out of messages to read exactly when she was going to come down and shoot me.
Okay. It's an interesting alignment there. Yeah, not sure what that means, but it feels kind of significant. And so she entered the basement, but stopped. No.
Yeah, she stopped on the landing. She didn't enter the basement.
So you consider the landing not technically part of the basement. Like, you don't enter the basement when you go through the door that leads to the stairs. It's like you have to actually go through that barrier to get.
When you pass that one-way
Gotcha.
walk-through.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. And maybe to conceptualize it in my mind is, were these like exposed stairs or was there a narrow opening through like what I'm trying to say is, like, sometimes, if you stand at the top of the stairs, you can see down the stairs, but you can only see what's framed by the bottom of the stairs. Like, everything else around corners is out of line of sight.
Yeah, so she wouldn't have been able to see me from the top of the stairs.
Okay, but once she got to the landing, then actually from the landing you can see more of the basement.
Into the basement, yeah.
Okay. And what you noticed was that she was carrying a tiny gun, and
like a comically tiny gun.
Comically, no, that's. And you said she was almost like gripping it with 3 fingers, like a thumb and 2 fingers. Yeah. Like, okay. Yeah.
And she was trying so hard. Like, I don't remember feeling scared. I remember feeling like I should laugh in her face.
Okay. And she was very serious, very earnest. This is serious business, and she's going to get it done.
She had her hand on her wrist, like she was doing like a Call of Duty, like she was coming to get me.
She was stabilizing, and she's going to make every shot count.
With this tiny little gun that she had in 3 fingers. It was just ridiculous.
Okay. And then completely fails. Every shot she takes at you misses.
Every single shot. And I remember feeling like I should laugh in her face, but that would make her more upset. So if I'm going to die, that's okay. And then when the last shot, like, I felt it brush the air by my cheek. It was the only shot that got anywhere close to me. At that moment, I was like, no. And I rushed up the landing at her.
So the experience of her just about emptying the gun, the gun was comical. She was comically serious. You had this urge to laugh, but you're like, I don't want to make her more mad. And it wasn't until that last shot when you're like, that almost hit me. That's not okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah, absolutely. That I'm guessing that has something to do with real life, because that's really how I dealt with my stepmother the entire time that I knew her too. It's just like,
I think that's where we're coming back around to this, is how is your relationship with your step? I'm gonna pull the Freud now. Please to be telling me about your mother. We're gonna definitely gonna get there. I think that's all connected. But I like getting these. Really, what are these details? It puts you back in it too. So you said you rushed at her. So you rushed up those stairs and you were gonna punch her.
No, I did punch her.
Oh. And how did that play out? Where did you hit her? You know, what was her reaction?
In the face, it was between her nose and her cheek, and it like immediately made her unconscious.
Knocked her out.
Like, it was just one punch on the floor. I took her gun. I went to my dad. It was like one fluid movement.
Bam! Very skillfully done, like a ninja in a movie. Bam!
Yeah,
very nice. Very nice. Where does that leave us here? Da, 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 da. So what was your, in order to rush at her and punch her, you had to go back through that barrier. Was there any experience of being aware of the barrier, or the whole idea of the barrier had just disappeared?
The whole idea of the whole barrier was just gone. The door frame no longer existed. It was just a wall to a hallway. The whole door frame was gone.
Wow. Okay. So the kind of image representation of the barrier had completely disappeared.
Because when I went into the writing room, it was brown. Like, you could see the door frame.
Yeah.
Where there used to be a door. But when I left the basement, there was no door frame at all. It was just white wall, and the end of the white walls were painted.
Okay, just like you were saying, the corner of a hallway. It's like there was never a door frame here.
There was never a door frame at all.
Okay. And what was, maybe describe a little bit to me about how you went upstairs and searched for your father, or did you go straight to where his room was? Did you pass through other rooms?
No, it was straight to his room.
Did that? Go ahead.
So you go up the landing, and then you go up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs, straight ahead of you is the kitchen, and to the left is his room. And those were the only two rooms.
Okay.
But my stepmother never went into his room, which means that if she had been sleeping there for 3 days, she was sleeping in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Or standing in the kitchen the entire time. Like, it didn't seem like a house. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to do a little, I put little notes on the side sometimes. The idea that she never entered your father's room. Very interesting. What does it mean? I don't know, but I think it is. I get a tickle. I get a tickle of significance with that idea. So you just, it was, he's not in the kitchen. He's in his room. So you went straight to his room. Did you throw the door open? Did you engage him through the door? How did that play out?
No, his room had the door frame.
Oh, now the one-way barrier from the basement appeared at his doorway.
I don't know if there was another one there the whole time, or if that's the one from the basement. I just knew that I couldn't go into that.
Okay. So fair enough. That was my assumption, possibly, that it was the same door frame, but it had the same characteristics. You said it was another one-way door. Okay.
So if I went in, I wasn't coming out.
So again, it was just a door frame, and it was not a door. So you're able to see his room through there, but you stopped prior to that barrier.
Yeah.
Okay. You drinking coffee? I was like yawning. I was like, oh yeah, I want some too. So what was the? Let me get my thoughts straight. You had the gun in your hand. Were you pointing it at him as soon as you saw him? Or you
No,
you did not point it at
the
him?
gun left.
Gun disappeared by this time. Okay.
I took the gun from my stepmother, but by the time I got to the top of those stairs, which is only like 7 or 8 steps, I no longer had the gun.
And you
But
didn't
it
have
was no
any,
longer a threat. It was just
yeah.
gone.
You just took it to secure it in a way and take it with you. And at that point, maybe no longer needed it. And you don't even have a memory of tossing it away or setting it
I
aside,
remember
just
it
gone.
being incredibly heavy when I took it,
That's right.
but I don't remember putting it down.
I wanted to make a note of that too. Okay. Try and help me remember to come back around to that. That gives me a tickle too. That the idea that the gun was extremely heavy, for being so tiny. So by the time you got to the place where your father was, you stopped prior to that door frame. You didn't have the gun anymore. That's out of your mind. You didn't need it, presumably. And you engage with him. You said the first thing you noticed upon seeing him. So just for my own sake, where was he in the room? Was he standing just on the other side of the door frame? Was he sitting in a chair?
So my dad, in the last like 10 years of his life, he was unable to move around a lot.
Okay.
And so he spent a lot of time in front of his TV on his PS3 playing like Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
And it was as if you had taken a picture of him on any day during that last 10 years. And he was just sitting there in that frame. Like he was in his comfy chair. He had the controller panel in his hand. He was staring at the TV. And it wasn't until I approached the door frame that he looked at me.
And you said his face was kind of expressionless, just blank, like. And what I wrote down was he did not give the impression that he was looking at his daughter, like someone important.
I don't even think he recognized me as anything other than a stranger. Like just a person.
Okay.
And not a threatening person. He wasn't afraid. It was just, oh, you're here, kind of thing.
or in a way, oh, there's someone there. I guess I'll look at them.
Not shocked or surprised or anything. There was no real emotion.
Okay. And did you speak to him first, or did he volunteer words?
He looked at me, and in the moment that he was looking, he had already begun to speak. Like he knew that I was coming, and he had to say it before I said it.
Okay. And what was it he said again?
He said it needed to be done. And it didn't feel like he was talking about was me dying.
Okay. Did you get an idea of what the it
I think
was?
it was just the experience, like me seeing all of the names and dealing with my stepmother and leaving my things in the second. Like all of those things needed to be done. Not necessarily me dying or not being able to escape the basement, but like having experienced those things. That.
Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. Did you respond in any way? Did he say anything else?
No, I immediately turned around and tried to leave through the kitchen.
Okay, so what was it that made you want to take that action? Was there some feeling that came up in you in response to what he said and how you understood it that gave you this desire to
I don't
go
think it
somewhere?
was a response to his words. I think it was, I'm done.
Okay.
Like I needed to leave the house now. I felt I had to immediately because I was just done.
Now, a lot of people say done, and there's I don't want to say a lot of people. There's different ways of understanding that idea. There's the I'm done here. There's nothing else for me to do. I'm going to leave.
Oh no,
And
I was
there's
mad.
mad.
I was
Okay,
out.
I am done with this shit. That's
Yeah,
what I was
I'm
trying to
out.
figure
I'm
out. Okay.
leaving in the quickest way possible.
And so you went to the kitchen, and this was kind of the sequence. It was like you went to the kitchen, doors locked, can't get out, and then you went to.
Yeah, so the kitchen had no furniture in it. No furniture, no dishes. There was a sink, but no stove. There was a fridge, but no like table or chairs, nothing. It was just like half the kitchen was there and half the kitchen was nailed shut.
Oh, gotcha,
I don't
yeah.
understand it.
And the exit door was also something that was nailed shut.
Yeah, so I went back down to the landing and the front door was nailed shut. And I knew I had to go back into the basement in order to escape.
And what was that experience like again, heading back down to the basement? Had anything
Well, my
changed?
stepmother was not on the stairs. But I wasn't afraid of her coming. Like, she was just gone. Like the gun, it was just gone.
Okay. What was the process of looking for an exit from the basement? Like, did you ever go back into the small room, or deal with the bag of belongings at all? Okay.
So I went through the writing room, and at the front of the writing room, there's the opaque window.
Okay.
I immediately went to that window and punched it out. And as I was crawling through that window, the clothing that I was wearing came off in the struggle to get through the window pane, like the area, because it was small and I'm a big lady.
Okay.
It made sense in the dream that
Sure.
just my clothing couldn't make it through. And when I got outside, there was the travel case suitcase.
And you
right
had
outside
just to pause for a moment there. You got the sense that making it outside, you were completely naked.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you saw the travel case. Do you have a visual image of that? What was it? A certain color, a certain shape, a certain material?
It was like a dark foresty green kind of, not camo. It was all one color, and the handles were black. I know the handles were black because we fought over them.
Yeah. And was it like a cloth zip-up bag? Was it one of those hard case?
No, so it was a soft, like it was a soft luggage with wheels on it. And it zippered on 3 sides.
Okay.
But it was hard on the side with the wheels, and it was soft on the side where you open it for your clothes to come out.
Okay. Gotcha. Speaking of clothes coming out, did you pause a moment to put on new clothes, or you just went on down the road naked?
Went on down the road. The luggage was heavy enough that I knew that there was things in it, and I knew that the luggage was mine. But I never at any point opened it up or tried to put clothing on for some reason.
Gotcha.
But I wasn't ashamed either. There was no, oh shit, people are going to see me naked. It was kind of just, I'm free. I had more of the sense of, I get to leave now.
Okay. And you said it was a very short road that, like you said, like maybe 50 feet.
Yeah, it was. It was like at the end of somebody's driveway, but it was the dustiest road I've ever seen for such a small, like, there was pavement, a road paved, but the road from my dad's place to the center had a dirt road.
Huh.
And it was incredibly dusty.
Dusty dirt road.
I could see the roadway on the other side that was like from the city and taken care of, like I assumed, because it had asphalt and streetlights. But the way that I went was to the dusty road center for some reason.
Okay. So were there just for my own clarification, two roads going to the same place, or one was the dusty road to the center and the other was a city street that went somewhere else?
They ran parallel to each other, but to different places.
Did you have a sense of what was at the end of the other road?
No, I just knew that the dusty road was the closest place to go to, and I needed to call for help.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to go to the closest place.
Okay.
I knew that there was traffic on the other road because I saw cars going by.
Sure.
And it never occurred to me until now, like as an awake, rational person, hey, maybe I should have flagged down a car.
Sure.
That didn't occur to me in the dream.
Yeah. No, and why would it? Or rather, why wouldn't it? So maybe we'll get there. Yeah, it's great. Those things don't make. Sometimes the things don't make sense. But of course, it's rational. You're like, well, you're not literally in your rational mind in dreams. It's
Yeah.
there's something else going on there. There's maybe a reason you wouldn't do that, because you said you had the sense that that was the closest place, and it even may have been. This is all post hoc supposition, but it may have been that you needed to go to that place to have an experience, and that flagging down a car for help wasn't going to accomplish the same thing. So
Probably.
I think that's where we're going with that. So it was a very short trip, and bing, you're there. I mean, the bag was heavy, but you didn't have a sense of struggling to bring it with you, or
Yeah, no, it wasn't a struggle to bring it with me. I knew that it was mine, and so I should take it.
yeah.
But I didn't feel any attachment toward it and had no idea what was inside. Like I just assumed it was closed.
Okay. Okay, and then you got to let me clean up my notes a little bit here. You got to the place, and you call it kind of a bustling center, and you described it maybe as like, I don't know, is this a bus station? There was just a lot of people around. Wait.
So there was lots of people around, and I couldn't tell if it was like a bus center or like a homeless shelter because the people looked derelict, but there were buses all over the place. Not like school buses, but like white fancy buses, not like a tour bus.
That's what I was going to say, like a Greyhound tour bus, like they were waiting to go on a journey.
It was as large as a school bus, but it was painted for a different reason.
Okay. So your dream identified it as something. This is not school buses here for kids. This is some other kind of a.
Yeah, it was like the transportation of people, but not necessarily one that I could buy a ticket and leave on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, you knew you weren't there to travel. That was not the purpose of that location. You weren't,
Yeah,
you weren't
I'm not
heading for a
on
bus.
I'm
Yeah.
going to the payphone to call the cops.
I'll write that down too. And how long was it after you arrived there that this woman came out of nowhere to?
Immediately.
Okay.
She saw me out of the crowd. I saw her see me. Because I'm like scanning the area for a phone or somebody with a phone so that I can borrow it. Because like I needed to call the police and have the police go to that house.
Okay. And then she came straight up to you?
Oh yeah, we made eye contact for like a millisecond and she immediately, her face turned angry upon seeing me. She charged straight up to me, grabbed my suitcase with one hand, used her other hand to grab my hand and try to pull it off. Without saying a word. Like she was just angry as fuck.
Okay. So very angry and determined to get that bag away from you.
Yeah.
And what was the then verbal exchange? Did you engage her first and say, "Hey, knock it off," or
No, we physically fought over the bag, and I ignored her while holding on to the bag to call the police on the payphone that I had found. Like, I dragged her and the luggage, her struggling with the luggage, I dragged them to the payphone I found
did you get
without talking.
did you get the sense that it was a difficult struggle, or that she was struggling as hard as she could, but that you were very much physically dominant and she wasn't going to get it? You know.
Yeah, it was a struggle for her a lot, and it was kind of a struggle for me. Like, I could feel my arm shaking,
Okay.
but I was pulling her with us while my arm was being like shaken.
Yanked on. Gotcha. And yeah, you never got the sense that you had to stop looking for the phone and focus on this
No,
bag because she was about to get it away from you.
I thought she was just a crazy lady.
Okay. And you weren't going to overreact and like hit her
Yeah,
or
I
do
wasn't going to
anything
do
violent or
anything except
dangerous.
drag.
Just
I
ignore it. She's
think
no
I
threat.
thought that by calling the police, she would stop.
Once she hears, "I'm calling the cops," you want to back off?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Gotcha.
think I felt like as soon as I called the police, but she did not.
Okay. And so you did actually get through to the police while she's still yanking and struggling?
Yeah. So I talked to a constable, and I don't remember the name. I just remember, I think it was Harris, actually, now that I
Okay.
think about it. I think I talked to Constable Harris, and he said that a car, he didn't say squad. I said squad. I said, "Can you bring me a squad car?" And he said, "We can have a car outside waiting for you, but you have to go outside."
So you were actually inside of this building. There was a building there. It
Yes.
wasn't like an open area with a payphone
No.
outside. You went inside a building.
It was like once you walked into this building, which looked small, like it looked like a small square, just any old apartment building kind of thing. But then once you went inside, it was a giant circle with just people around every wall. And in the center were podiums where payphones were. I knew
Okay.
exactly where the payphones were once I had scanned the people.
Gotcha. And you did mention that all the other people inside this space were aware of you, but ignoring you, and like they're not going to get involved. They're not going to help.
Yeah, they didn't care. They didn't care what happened. They were just standing around. Like, they didn't even move anywhere. And they weren't even watching us the entire time. The only time that they paid attention to us is when she was like grabbing at them or like screaming in their faces. That's the only time that they ever looked at us at all. But as soon as I walked into that center, she made eye contact with
And
me
came straight for
and
you.
she came straight over to me. So I got the sense like they were waiting for other people that they were going to then confront. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they weren't there for me, so they weren't going to come. But if they had seen the person that they needed, they would have gone to them.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm describing that right.
No, that's perfectly fine. So you had completed the call, and the constable said, "We will send a car," and you knew
Yeah.
that meant that the car would be waiting outside the building for you. All you had to do was go meet them outside.
Yes.
Okay, and so you and the woman never stopped yanking on the bag, and it was during the process of getting from the phone to the car outside that she started talking to you, and that's when like the verbal abuse, profanity, etc.
No. So
No.
she was like screaming and calling me a fucking bitch and
Okay.
this is my bag. You can't take my stuff. The entire walk to the payphone.
Okay.
But when we left the payphone, instead of screaming at me now, she's screaming at the people that don't care to get them to help her take this bag from me because it's her bag, which it wasn't. It was my bag. I knew it was my bag. That's why I kept a hold of it.
Okay. It was not something you were going to allow her to take from you because it did not belong to her.
Right.
Okay.
And I'd never seen her before.
Sure.
So she was not taking my stuff.
Okay. And then it was on the way from the payphone to the car outside that she started to appeal to other people to help her because she knew you were leaving with the bag.
She was violent. It wasn't just appealing. It was like, you have to help me. She was grabbing their arms. She was screaming in their faces. Like, you fucking cunt. Why don't you do anything? Like, she was just ballistic. As crazy as she was to me to the payphone, she was that crazy to everyone else on the way out.
And had she disengaged from the bag, or you said you wrestled with?
No, she was still holding on.
She's got one hand on that handle trying to yank it from you,
yeah.
And now she's grabbing at other people like, do something, make her let go of this and give it to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she stopped talking to me. Like, once I called the cops, she stopped talking to me. She was talking to everybody else.
And now was trying to get other people to intervene. And then where does that take us? You walked out of the center. She's still yanking on the bag. The bystanders were like, I don't want any part of this. They're not helping her, but they're not helping you either.
So we got out of the center and there's nobody outside. There's no cop car. There's no derelict people. All of the buses are gone. It's just me, her, the dusty road, and my father's house. And so once I see that the cop car's not there, I figure I'm not getting help. So the next time she yanked on that bag, I charged at her like I charged at my stepmom. It was exactly the same, fist up, ready to punch her in the face.
And what was her response to that?
Oh, she very skillfully evaded me. She let go of the bag, and it almost looked like she was about to cry. And she ran up the dusty road and got into the basement window.
Okay. Let me just kind of wrap my brain around this real quick here. And you had the concern about her at that time that this was a bad thing for her.
Oh yeah, she was going to die. I immediately knew that she was going to die in that place. I felt guilty because I had chased her into the place where she was now going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so she climbed in through the window head first. And I stood there to make sure that she was okay. But she turned and looked at me. And the moment I saw her face, I knew she was going to die. And I felt like in the moment that I looked at her face, I just absolutely knew that was it for her.
Yeah.
And that's when I woke up.
Wow. Yeah. And then that feeling probably kind of lingered with you after you'd woken up, huh?
It lingered so much that I did not go to sleep for hours after that. I made myself a coffee. I had a smoke. I sat and played video games. I stayed awake on purpose because I have this thing where I'll have the same set of dreams over and over again. Sometimes small things will change, but if I don't break myself out of it, I'll just keep having that dream.
You just go right back into it. And so you didn't want to just fall asleep back into the same dream, and it was a disturbing enough experience.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Well, we've gone through it once, heard the short version, and then we got a lot more details. And before I start trying to put my own thoughts in your head, I like to ask people during that process, and it sounded like you did you have any connections, any moments of epiphany, any sense that came to you of what it was about, what it was trying to tell you, what the characters meant.
Yeah, I think that the characters were very literal. Like I found out about 3 weeks ago that my biological mom had passed away.
Oh,
So, and I knew when I woke up that the crazy person that was struggling for my bag was my biological mom. Like I just knew that that was her.
yeah,
Um, and it felt like she was trying to take from me the past that I had earned.
hmm,
Do you know what I mean? Like I had
sort
gone
of.
through the experience in my father's house. I deserved that bag.
Yeah, there's a motif of bags. You're bringing a bag to your father's house in the beginning, and this bag you said had toys and books. Almost, and the first thing that came to my mind was childhood. This,
Yeah,
yeah, these are
yeah,
things
it
from
was
your past,
very
from when you were
childish.
young.
And once I shoved it in that room, it didn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah,
Like I didn't care to pick it up ever again.
you left it behind. It was just there. It is. It's
Yeah,
been placed where it needs to be. That's kind of what I was thinking too on that.
yeah,
Um, and then there's also the the motif of you get out of the house and there's another bag, but then you're fighting over this bag, and that's you're saying. And this was a representation of your mother. And this dream happened after you found out that she had passed.
yeah.
Yeah, that seems
Well, it just happened 2 days ago.
Oh, 2 days ago. Well, fair enough. Then yeah, that is after 3 weeks ago. It's technically true. We'll put that in the true category. So no, you were saying, and I think I interrupted you. Go ahead. What else did you, in your own mind, put together? Going through it.
Oh, I think that my father's complacency is very literal as well. Like I feel like that's the way that he was throughout their entire marriage. Like my stepmother ruled the household.
Yeah, and he
Um,
just kind of, yes, dear.
yeah,
I'm playing
whatever
I'm
you
playing my
want to
games.
do. Yeah, as long as we're all sane and taken care of. Not necessarily healthy, because she
Yeah,
didn't do a fantastic job, either in the dream or in real life. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think that was just my brain's way of saying, like, yeah, this is exactly what happened to you, and you've earned that bag to take with you for the rest of your life. Do you know what I mean? Like, those
yeah,
were the essential items that were now mine,
yeah.
and
And
I couldn't let anybody take them from me.
there is a very strong metaphor. I mean, we use it of people's personal baggage.
Yeah,
Comes with you wherever you go. You mean you bring your baggage to relationships, you bring
yeah,
it to work.
it
It's just
felt
kind of,
very literal.
yeah, no, for sure, and that can be a very what am I trying to say? Yeah, very literal representation of that kind of a thing. Of like these are mine, and you can't take it away from me. And there's two kinds of can't. I won't allow it to be taken from me, but also it can't be taken from me. It happened. Therefore, it's not something I can put down necessarily. It's gonna go with
Yeah,
me, but it was heavy, and also like the gun was heavy. That's also an
the gun
interesting,
was heavier than the suitcase.
yeah, for being so tiny. Um,
Yeah,
but and what made me think there, and you may have the same impression, is that there was this sense of your stepmother being armed with some kind of a weapon that had a lot of weight to it, and weight. You can tell me if this
a lot
resonates
of
with
weight
you.
to it, but no effect.
Yeah, very ineffective. But it was threatening. I mean, it's a gun, so it's something that should be scary and is potentially dangerous, and dangerous enough that it caused you to react at the very end. But also that,
It
but
was
the
so small. As soon as I
right,
see your fingers like that, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how she held it too. In
yeah.
3 fingers, like.
Don't make me shoot you. Uh, right? No, but and that's a very interesting a dynamic of maybe how your mind is looking at this thing of like she's carrying this weapon that's hard for her to use because it's so heavy, even if it is potentially deadly. I mean, a tiny gun still shoots tiny bullets, and tiny bullets can make you bleed, so it could be potentially deadly. But um, what am I trying to say? But it was also comical, and I guess maybe looking back on her now, or your experience with her, this this weapon that maybe felt more threatening when you were younger. Now you're looking at it like, what was I even scared of?
Yeah, absolutely.
That comes to mind. I wanted to ask you, did you have a relationship with your biological mom in the past, or you just never knew her?
No, so I was left in a closet when I was 2.5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad was a long haul truck driver, and my biological mom, I guess, decided that she'd rather have cocaine than a child.
Yeah, some people
So,
make that decision. Oy.
yeah. But
So,
instead of alerting authorities or anything, she actually left me in the house alone, and it was the neighbors that had to call
wow.
social services and the police and stuff. Yeah, so
So the idea
I
of your
was in
mom
foster care when I
being an
was 6.
unstable person showing up at a homeless shelter bus station place and screaming at you,
It
it
totally
kind of makes
did.
sense.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And you never really had a relationship with her or stayed in touch with her over the years. She just kind of disappeared. And then randomly you find out, oh, she died.
So I got in touch with her when I was 24,
Okay.
because Facebook started becoming a big thing
Oh, that's right.
back
And you were
then.
able to just
So
kind
I
of find
looked her
her.
up on
Yeah.
Facebook. Yeah. And she had nothing to say, really.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
we talked for 2 days, and in the end, she just started sending me like Facebook invites for games and stuff, like not treating me like a person. Do
Huh.
you know what I mean?
Did she
Like she
ever?
had disassociated herself from being a mother.
Yeah.
And so me bringing it up 20 years later or 22 years later was an inconvenience
She's like, I have
kind
moved
of thing.
on. You're not even a part of my life anymore. I don't know
Yeah, it was
you.
kind of like, I'm not going to make you leave me alone, but I really hope you do.
Yeah. She just wasn't investing anything into it.
Not any energy, not any
And she
effort.
never
Yeah.
offered
So,
any apology for, hey, I'm sorry, I kind
no,
of abandoned you. Okay.
no, not at all.
Ah,
I actually sent her like quite a few paragraph notes. Like, I'm a very eloquent person when it comes to emails.
yeah. Long-winded, as I say about myself.
Long-winded. And I went through my entire history. This is what's happened since you've been gone. And 22 years is quite a long time.
Oh, it sure is. Probably
And
overwhelming
her
for her too. Yeah.
response was like 3 sentences.
That's nice. Thanks for calling. Right?
It was pretty well that. It was like, I can't remember verbatim,
Mm.
but it was kind of like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know I was never really a good mom. Okay.
Understatement of the year. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, pretty well.
Wow. Yeah. And so your stepmother then was actually your primary caregiver for most of your life in terms of, 'cause your dad was
So
a long
I was
haul.
in foster care until I was 6,
Oh, okay.
and then her daughter passed away. And when her daughter passed away, she had my dad come and get me from foster care.
Hmm.
It was very strange.
So there was like a whole
Um,
4-year period of time where your dad never came to get
where,
you.
yeah, he never came to get me
Wow.
because he was already in a relationship with her.
Yeah.
They were already having new children. They had a whole new life.
Yeah. Were your bio mom and dad together when she abandoned you and he was just on the road,
Yeah,
or had they
so
already split up?
I'm actually the only legitimate child because my parents were actually married.
Okay.
But my dad and his common law wife was never married. So
Okay.
both of my brothers are my half brothers,
Okay.
and they're technically illegitimate children.
Yeah, I mean the common phrase is, or the exact technical specific phrase is bastards, but we don't say that anymore. So
Yeah,
I mean I'm just being silly.
they're my brothers from another mother, and I'm their sister from another
And
mister.
you have a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Good
They
deal.
went through the same horrific upbringing that I did, so
Yeah.
we're
Sounds
three
like he
peas.
was distant and she was kind of abusive in her own way.
Yeah, so I came out of foster care when I was 6. I went back in when I was 11, came back out when I was 12, went back in when I was 14. I
Wow.
emancipated myself at 15,
Okay.
and I've spent from 15 until now being my own person.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like it was not the most stable. Well, that is, I mean, hearing all that stuff, your dream makes a lot more sense in terms of this was not a friendly, safe environment.
To be honest, the writing felt safer. Like the writing room where all the writing was felt safer to be sitting there reading it than trying to go upstairs to talk to my father.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as long as the dangerous people were removed somewhere else, kept at bay by their own desire to be there and no desire for interaction, that was safer.
Read those words forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's something important there too. That's something I wanted to come back around to, is that the idea that it was reassuring in a way, and maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you felt it was necessary to read all the words. There was this compulsion to be thorough about absorbing the messages, even if they were as simple as "I'm here," "I was here," that kind of thing. And I think there's something important there too, that you're in a position that many other people have been in before you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that make you think?
It kind of makes me think like it was reassuring to see that other people had been in this room sort of with me, but not in the same timeline.
Yeah. Have you made connections with people in life? What am I trying to say? Who have shared similar experiences?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an aspirational thing of like, it would be nice if I could get that reassurance of, but there's also a part of your mind that literally put that there because you understand that you're like, I'm not the only person who had a rough childhood. There are a lot of people who came through this and survived it. So maybe that was your brain saying, you're physically alone, but you're not alone. This is a common experience. And
yeah.
And there is something reassuring, not to misery loves company type of way, but like they made it, I can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that window was not locked. So whoever left last didn't like alert them. It didn't show my stepmother. Do you know what I mean? Like it didn't give her reason to nail that window shut.
Gotcha.
She didn't come into that basement. So they had been taken to the writing room. They had written their short passage. And then they left through the same window I left. So they got out too. I didn't feel like
anyone
they
had
were
died there.
Dead or under the floorboards or anything. Like,
yeah, exactly. No, that came to my mind as well. Yeah, that nobody died there, and you didn't either. That experience, however unpleasant, it didn't kill you. So there's part of your mind that's I would say definitely proud of that, but also like what am I trying to say? Like it's not, if it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger.
Bag,
but
I felt like I had earned that bag.
Once you got outside?
I assume that when the other ladies left, they also had earned something. Do you know what I mean? Like
their own bags, yeah.
Their own something to take with them from their experiences.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. What were some of the other things that I had made? Now's the point where my boy Prince usually comes and lays on things as I put them down here. It was interesting. There was a whole conversation between your stepmother and father, and he was always distant in real life. So it maybe makes sense that he would be behind all these multiple walls so that even his voice is muffled. You're not even seeing him. You can barely hear him. It seems like his presence in your life was very removed, or multiple barriers.
And when I went upstairs to see him, it was as if he had just stepped out of a picture. Do you know what I mean? Like, It was very cliche, my dad. It wasn't my dad the way that he interacted with me personally.
Yeah.
But it was him as a person.
Yeah. There is something very iconic about that image of maybe the way you conceptualize him is there he is again, focused on his video games, tuning the world out in his comfy chair. That's kind of the core of who he was to you for a long time.
Yeah.
And so to have that image come back and say, of course, this is what I remember. This was how he was disengaged or not actively managing what a situation that could have been made better if he was paying attention, if he was invested in the outcome and not just trying to tune the world out.
Because maybe if he had been actually listening to what she said, maybe he wouldn't have chosen to have her come and shoot me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it seemed like he didn't understand that I was going to die tomorrow. And he
Yeah,
was just like, yeah, yeah.
for sure. And meanwhile, she's making decisions or advocating for outcomes or behaviors that were
Negative outcomes.
negative
It
outcomes that are
felt like,
not in your best interest, not in favor of helping you or making your life better, literally ending it in your mind.
or his,
Yeah.
because it felt like she hadn't entered his room either. Like,
Yeah.
because his room had the one-way barrier as well, and I never heard her footsteps go into his room. So it was like she was taking care of him as well, only in the most minimal way possible,
Mm-hmm.
so that she could just do whatever she wanted to, which I don't know what that is, because there was no other room in that house other than his room in the kitchen. So unless she was
Yeah.
standing in a corner the entire time, I don't
Well,
know
I'd say
what she got out of it.
if you're trapped in the basement by the one-way door and he's kind of isolated by choice in his room, then she gets the run of the rest of the house. She gets her way. She gets to
It's not a very big house.
set the rules. Fair enough. And maybe that kitchen reference. I mean, did she cook? Did she spend a lot of time in the kitchen? Is that where she kind of hung out? Was that her space in real life?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be all the time. Could have been, because I'm sure in real life she actually did go into your dad's room.
That's for sure.
Say again?
She did all of the cooking for him.
Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, so that's also kind of iconic of her is that, you had these 2 rooms in the house, and in your real life experience of these people, and each room represents that person in a way, him in his isolation, her in her domain, her cooking, but also you two being shuffled off into different separate areas where they were out of her way. They wouldn't interrupt her ability to control what was going on. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. That's, and I've got this here. I just wanted to look at it. I mean, we might have gone over that enough. There were a few things I underlined, highlighted. Yeah, it was very important to read all the messages. The idea that the small room had the bare minimum. Yeah, these one-way barriers are very interesting. Just the door frames, the idea that passing through, there's a sense of finality, of irreversibility to certain decisions. Like, you don't have to do this, but once it's done, it can't be undone, and that happens in our lives all the time. But it doesn't always feel as impactful as it does with our relationships. So there's something about decision making, about irreversible decisions that's going on with those door frames. I don't know if that brings anything to mind.
And yet, I think we kind of volunteered to be behind those lines. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, there's definitely a choice involved.
It's not that we made the choice to be segregated from everything else, but we chose to put ourselves past that.
To say put yourself across the threshold, entering an irreversible decision, or hesitating to cross the barrier?
No, there was no hesitation. I think it means something when I chose to enter the basement. My dad chose to enter that room, and we chose to stay there in our respective things instead of communicating with each other, instead of going to the kitchen, instead of trying to do anything to get out of those rooms. We just accepted that not only was the choice being made for us, but that we were just expected to have made that choice, and we were going to live with that choice. There was no going back.
Yeah. And in some ways, with things that have already happened, they cannot be undone. I mean, no matter what it is, it could be as simple as you brush your teeth. You can't unbrush them. They've been brushed. That happened 5 minutes ago. That's very simple. But then there's other things where it's like, I chose to get behind the wheel of a car drunk and I killed someone. Can't take it back. It can be major. It can be minor, but it's those irreversible things. And we really only focus on it when it's regret oriented, when it's like, I wish things had been different.
I think because I chose to live in that household with them, without ever, I didn't call the police when I should have when I was younger. I
Yeah.
didn't leave when I should have when I was younger. I wanted so badly to have some sort of relationship with my father, who was separated from
Yeah.
that I stayed in
It
a
just had always
place.
been.
Yeah. I stayed there voluntarily, but not without regret.
Yeah. And attempting to make a connection that you just couldn't force to happen. It had to be, you could reach out your hand, he's got to reach back. And it's excusable to you as a child, of course, that you didn't know how to make that happen. And in some ways, maybe it's excusable to him. He didn't know how to make it happen either, or whatever was in him to desire that and work towards it just couldn't connect. Not trying to make excuses for it, but there's a lot of people that are,
But he didn't make the efforts for anyone, not even my mother, because by not ever discussing anything with her or coming to a resolution on anything in real life, he just gave away his control. Do you know what I mean? Like, he didn't interact with his sons. He didn't interact with me. He didn't take control of his own life. He didn't have a proper relationship with my mother, like my stepmother, but I call her my mother because she's really the only mother I've ever known.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I don't think that he had a real and substantial relationship with anybody that he knew.
Huh.
I think that is part of why he's in that room and can't leave.
Yeah.
It's because if he came out and interacted with me, then he'd have no excuse as to why he couldn't interact with anybody else.
Yeah.
So maybe he's trapped there by his own making, the way that I was trapped in the writing room by my own making. Because the moment I didn't want to be in that writing room anymore,
you got out.
There was no barrier.
Yeah. And that is very interesting. Yeah. I mean, there is that choice. And you did mention that too originally, that there was a sense of, you knew what it meant to cross the barrier, and you had the sense that it was almost like it had to happen. Like you didn't have a choice, even though you were making the choice. It was expected. It was obligated. It was the way it needed to be.
Yeah, I was already in their house, and so that was where I was meant to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then that it would disappear when it was no longer needed. That's not the right way to put it. When you decided, I'm not going to have that barrier in my way. I don't care what it was when I got here. It's not the same thing now, because.
And I'm out.
Yeah, you something about you changed in that. And you said, you mentioned a while ago, and I'm glad I remembered, that there were echoes of how you actually dealt with your stepmother in real life in this exchange on the stairs with the tiny gun. What do you have to say about that in relation to the dream imagery? You don't have to talk about anything uncomfortable, of course.
That's okay. My dad passed away 2 years ago. And after he passed away, my stepmother still tried to communicate with us, and she thought that things would just go on as normal, as per usual. And I think the only reason why I ever had a relationship with her is because my father was there.
Because she's attached to your dad's package deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. I know as a human being it sounds horrible, but the moment my dad passed, I had absolutely no reason to talk to her. I no longer felt like it was necessary to have a conversation or keep a hold of anything to do with.
Yeah.
And so,
well, the reason to do so literally disappeared. Yeah.
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 So she would still ask for the same, like, crazy asinine tasks or chores, like, can you lend me $1,600? Like, she's always had strange demands the entire time that we were growing up. And we've always complied. Even if we couldn't do them, we still tried to do them. And they were never appreciated in the way that even one human would appreciate another human, let alone the way that a mother would appreciate a child.
Yeah.
So now as an adult, since my dad's not there and my relationship to her really means nothing, I just stopped doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, why would you? That's,
Yeah.
literally,
I didn't
the
loan
reason
her
to
any
do
money.
so has disappeared. Yeah.
When she was moving, I didn't help her move. She asked me to come deal with some of the people that she had invited to come and live with her, which were related to her it was like my second cousin once removed who was addicted to drugs, had moved into with her, and then she had 2 dogs and a boyfriend, and the cousin that was addicted to drugs that was invited to come and stay in the first place had left for 3 days, but the 2 dogs and the boyfriend was still there.
Huh.
And my stepmother wanted me to come over and ask them to leave.
Wow. Yeah.
How about no?
Yeah. No, it's like, that's a whole lot of drama I don't care to be involved in because not my problem. I get you on that one. Yeah.
And I stopped talking to her after that. So I haven't talked to her in probably, I don't know, 14, 15 months.
Wow.
Since before Coronapocalypse. Like,
yeah. And because you never really had that strong relationship with her in the first place. I mean, it wasn't like she was extremely supportive and earned that honor thy parents dynamic. And
I don't think she ever felt like a parent. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I only called her mom because it made my dad happy.
Yeah.
To hear us call her mother.
For sure. Yeah. And that, so the, what we were looking at was the dream imagery of she's taking these shots at you with the gun. And I mean, each bullet can be a representative maybe of those tasks or the attempt to, the experience of her doing things that were potentially wounding towards you. And you know, when that last bullet whizzed too close and you're like, I've had enough of this. That's just about too.
That was the only bullet that I thought I was going to die.
Where it even had the chance. I mean, the rest of it was like, and I think the idea that it was comical and she was missing. And I think there's a piece of your self concept in there where it's like, I'm too strong for this. You know, all these bullets she shot at me in the past, I did not let them wound me.
I remember thinking, firstly, how I wanted to laugh in her face. And secondly, I was like, well, if she actually does hit me, I guess I'll die. Like, just accepting, like, yeah, if she actually manages it, I'll let myself die.
Yeah, that was interesting too. I wasn't sure what to make of that. What do you think about that? The idea that if she were to do something to wound you fatally, you'd just say, fuck it, whatever. You'd be okay with it.
I think in that moment, I was having the same, like, disassociation that my dad was having with his problems. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, I had just blindly accepted everything that she said up until this point, and if I just blindly accepted this too, then maybe it would just all turn out for the best, because I don't really know where this is going, right?
Sure.
And it wasn't until I actually felt that there was an actual threat, because I didn't think that I was going to die before. I was just like, yeah, if she tries to kill me, if she actually manages it, then I'll be dead, whatever. I think it wasn't until I felt the threat that I could actually palpably know that in that instance I was going to die, that I didn't take action, because everything before that was an empty thing. It was a tiny comical gun. She was on the landing in this like weird Call of Duty display, like she was trying to be overly dramatic.
Yeah.
Like she's always overly dramatic. And it just felt like she couldn't possibly hit me.
Gotcha.
Do you know what I mean?
And there is something important in that the act of her attempting to do harm was displayed in your mind as not just harmless, but comical. This what is it? A caricature of her overly dramatic presentation of look at how serious I'm being. Yeah. I think there's something in there too, that all of that added up to this idea of it's probably not going to hurt me, but and that might take you back to your childhood in some ways, where it's like, in some ways you have no choice but to accept that your parents or caregivers make decisions, they're going to affect you. They might kill you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So fuck it. You kind of get that disconnect of, I'm going to go with the show.
I went through my whole childhood thinking that my decisions weren't really my own.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, I think it sounds like they weren't. I mean, because when we're children, we're so helpless. We don't have the information or the ability to act on what we think is best. We don't always know what is best. We're looking to our, caregivers to make those good decisions, trying to trust them, trying to form our own independence, but also largely trapped in the consequences of their decisions, because that's just what it means to be a kid, to be helpless in those situations. But your image of her changed in this exchange where there was this compliance with the expectation to go into the basement because that's where she wanted to go. And that's but then there was this change of you seeing her as no longer threatening, but now comical. But wait a minute, at the end of that comical display was the real risk of, you're like, oh wait, no, she is actually dangerous. Maybe I should do something about this. And so that's when you rush in and finally take that control of your own actions and destiny and say, I'm not taking this. I'm going to fight. And not only that, but in your mind, in your feeling towards this situation, you were successful. You hit her square in the nose and knocked her the fuck out. Yeah. So that's very, that personal empowerment type of thing, reflecting on your childhood and where you've come now, where you're at in your life now compared to what it used to be like, and leaving your toys in the basement in that tiny room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the dream, though, that feeling of like success didn't last for very long, because once I got up to my dad's room, the moment he looked at me, I just felt so sad.
Defeated again. Yeah. Oh yeah, like, this gap is here. This barrier is still here.
Success didn't affect anything except me. So now I have to leave this house by myself.
Yeah. Well, you overcame one problem and you were maybe briefly exultant. I won. Oh, these other problems are still here. Fuck. And they are.
Like,
they
fuck,
are.
Like, fuck, now I have to get out of here. Fuck, why is this window locked? Like, fuck. Yeah. Like, I can't.
Well, and then it was interesting that your exchange with him was, he's still this kind of iconic figure of distance and disinterest and expressionless, and not like he was looking at someone he cared. And all he said was it had to be done. How do you relate that to his life? Was he kind of fatalist in a lot of that? Like, there's nothing we could do, or that's just how it is. It was that kind of his attitude towards life.
Yeah. I mean, if that could be my dad's catchphrase, I think that would be it.
It had to be done, or that's the way it is.
He would only do what needed to be done, and he would only do it when it became no longer to be avoided. Do you know what I mean?
Something you just couldn't avoid it any longer.
Yeah.
Not very proactive about things.
And I think I picked that up in my personal life, because I'm very much a procrastinator.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of these things where they come back in our dreams in this way of like showing us people and events that represent things we're struggling with now. So you may have actually been thinking about, and you get all these things together at the same time and they connect, and then you dream about it. And it's a horrible jumbled mess of all these images and impressions and feelings and sensations. But then you narrow it down to this kind of thing. It's like, do I want to be like my father? Like, that came out of like our 2-hour conversation here. Do I want to be a procrastinator? Do I want to avoid problems until they screw me over?
I think this was like a PSA. My brain's like, PSA warning, that if I don't get more proactive, I'm going to end up a nihilist. Like my dad.
Yeah.
Like, I need to actually like stand up and punch somebody. Do you know what I mean?
Stand up and punch your problems. I mean, that proactive thing is, sometimes that's, what is it? Some people say, everything happens for a reason. There's that idea, but it's the idea of everything or everyone has a purpose in life. And my answer to that is, sometimes your purpose in life is to be a warning to others. And sometimes that's the best thing we can do with our past traumas like that is look at the people that let us down, handled things poorly, and say, I'm just going to choose not to do it that way because I didn't appreciate it when I experienced it, and I don't want to carry that forward in my life, do it to anyone else, or end up that way. I mean, if you close yourself off and hide in a room and play video games all day, it might occupy your mind and your time. You might not feel bad while you're doing it, but you're not really doing anything. You're not really taking care of the people around you or engaged with life or making your own life something worth living in a way.
Yeah.
So
This is really bad timing for that dream because it is the corona apocalypse and there is no going outside.
right? No. And that actually probably is exactly why all of this is also coming together because it's finally, it's giving you
'cause maybe
time
it's like,
to think about
I
it.
feel like I need to get some things done in my personal life and now I can't. Now I have the stepmother corona apocalypse at the top of the stairs preventing me from actually getting out of the basement.
Yeah.
And I just need to wait for my time. Do you know what I mean? Like as soon as this is all over,
Yeah.
I need to go and see my nephews. I need to make contact with what's left of my crumbling family. And I need to do something. Like do something other than playing Minecraft all day.
Yeah, which can be very much fun. I love my video games too,
Super
but it's
fun. But I mean, besides doing laundry, eating, and playing Minecraft, there's not really much to do in isolation. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
Like,
It's true. I think there's a part of you also that's looking for something more, and that's like, and you do feel trapped in this, and you are, but not maybe. I think part of what your mind's trying to tell you is you're not as trapped as you feel. It's not as it's that you. It's not that you can't. It's that you don't know how yet. But what your mind is telling you is if you look, you'll find that way. But you have to look for it. You can't just resign yourself to being stuck behind the one-way doors.
Maybe I should go get it.
Going to talk to a real professional. I mean, this is not counseling and therapy. We're doing this for entertainment and educational purposes only, of course.
No, but I mean, like, so the first thing that I do when I get out of the basement is I go to the nearest crowded center and call somebody for help.
Absolutely.
So maybe I'm supposed to go and get some help. Maybe not professional help.
Sure.
Maybe I just need a purpose.
Yeah. I think for sure. I think that imagery in the dream, and I was going to, we haven't even gotten to that stuff yet, but that is very representative of your mind or subconscious in this sense, acknowledging you're not going to get what you need in isolation. You're not going to get it on your own. You didn't even get it alone in the basement. You got it also from all the other people that have been there before. There was that hint, almost a foreshadowing of you're going to need to connect in order to get through this. And then once you did, immediately you went to a place where where there was a bunch of people and you could reach out to someone of a trusted authority in a way, like calling the police for help. And then it is interesting that as you got to that place of, I'm going to take action on this need to connect and pull in the support, the help that I need to get through this and to succeed in the future, this image of your mother shows up to try and yank your baggage away. And I think that's connected to the act of reaching out. So when you put those two things on top of each other, how does that image of your mother, the yanking, the struggling over the baggage fit with reaching out to connect and get help?
I think, and I know this is going to sound strange, but I think like because we had been disconnected for the 22 years up until we made, and then we were disconnected again another 14 years until I found out about her passing. Maybe that I just didn't want to know at that time if she was dead or alive. Like it didn't make sense why I needed to know that fact and that I needed to help myself. Do you know what I mean? Like I need to help myself and find my own help, my own purpose, and not worry about what happened to the crazy lady.
Sure. I think that's
because
a
that's
good connection.
just a barrier that I'll just get hooked up on, and I'll end up in another basement. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. There's something there with the idea that she's struggling to pull these things that you feel you've earned, that bag was waiting there for you once you escaped the basement because you'd earned it, because it was yours in a very material way, but also in a metaphysical way, thoughts and feelings, a lived experience kind of way, and it's heavy, but it's yours, and you don't want to lose it. Like, you didn't give the bag to her. You're like, take it, go. I don't need this. It's like, no, that's mine. That is mine. I know it. And there's something in, what am I trying to say? This representation of the mother fighting so hard to take it from you. Like, she felt it belonged to her, that you shouldn't have it. And that she was gonna, as much as you were there to reach out to people and connect and call for help, she was also then eventually appealing to these same people in that environment to do something to intervene, to make you let it go and give it to her. I don't think I'm putting the dots together, but I don't know if that brings anything to mind.
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like there's something there. I think that's I don't know. Sometimes I get these tickles and I'm like, damn, I can't figure it out. Sometimes I just ramble until something occurs to me. But one thing I was thinking is that it's not, sometimes the images in our mind and our dreams are not clear cut. It's like, this person's doing something not because that's what you think they would do, but because of the way you conceptualize what that person represents, that's telling you something about the action they're performing. So I think it's not like you think your mother's trying to ruin your life from the grave. That's a bad way to phrase it, but that's, one way you could conceptualize it, or that your image of her is that she would harm you in some way by taking something away, but that maybe something she represents. Let me put this another way. It's possible that if you were to conceptualize the luggage as baggage that you're carrying with you, and a lot of people do that as a negative thing, or traumas and experiences is my baggage, my personal baggage. There may be
more like it was just is.
What's that?
It's more like it just is my baggage. It's not like a negative connotation. It just is my.
Sure. And that's great for your mind's understanding of what it is you carry with you, is that it's mine. I can't get rid of it. Those experiences happened. They're heavy to carry, but you got wheels and you got the handle, and it's not like it's you're chained to a rock that is your baggage and you can't move with it.
It would have been easy to carry if she hadn't been struggling with me.
Exactly. So maybe there's even a part of you. Okay, here's where I'm going with this. I think it clicked in my mind, and this is pure speculation, but there may be a part of you that wishes your mother had been there and taken away all these bad experiences. Does that make sense? So, but now in your current mind, you're like, I'm letting go of that idea by not letting go of my baggage. By like, I'm letting go of the wish fulfillment that she had not abandoned me and had been a better mother and had been in my life. And I'm going to prove that to myself by dreaming this scene where she comes along to take my baggage from me. And I say, no, this is mine. I lived it. I'm not letting it go. I'm letting go of the desire for that my life had turned out differently.
Yeah, the desire for you to have come and fixed my problems for me.
That's where I was trying to go with that. I don't know if if it makes sense to you. It's just an idea.
That totally makes sense, because I chased her into the basement. Like, I knew what that house meant, and I still chased her into that basement.
You chased her, but she chose to go there, right? Or did you feel like you drove her there? If you hadn't chased her, she would not have ended up there.
Right.
Okay.
I feel like if I hadn't taken the bag and forcefully lunged at her, then she wouldn't have ran into that that window.
You did
Do you
say
know
you
what I
felt
mean?
responsible for her ending up in that
Because there
place.
was a road on the other side. Like, there was lots of places for her to run.
She could have
I
gone a
feel
different
like
direction.
I chased her into that basement.
Yeah. And that feeling of responsibility for her circumstances and
the dread.
Well, and the idea that
she was just like that.
Yeah. And it's funny because you're looking at it too, and you can look at it like, this is a human being. This is my biological mother, whom I wish no harm upon, yet is going to be harmed. And I feel dread and regret or whatever about that. But then there's also another level of,
but at least she's not holding onto my bag anymore.
She's not trying to take this from me. It's in a way like we were talking about that the mother representation was not. It's letting go of the desire for her to have come and saved you in the past, and that is letting an idea of her die.
Yeah.
And that is a sad experience. Like this, the death of an idea can be mourned the same way that as the death of a person. That's going to sound weird to people who are like, people are more important than ideas. Yes, but sometimes you have to say,
but it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
And that's a sad thing to let go of, this fantasy of rescue, and to let that idea die. It would be a sad experience, and would also fill you with some dread. Hey, if I let go of this fantasy, this desire that things had been different, what is my future going to be like? What do I do now? What do I replace that dream with? I don't have a new one yet. If you had a new dream already, you probably would have had a different experience of her sailing away on a ship and someone else appearing, but instead you're left with this dread of like, okay, that idea is going to die and I don't know what to do. Yeah. It's a lot of people, I say that all the time, but there are some people who experience the death of a relative in a dream and they're like, why do I wish my mother had died? That's not what it means. It's you're not wishing harm upon anyone, or there's no secret inner desire for the death of people. It's usually, death in dreams is usually it's an ending. It's a finality. It's passing a threshold. It's different things that don't always mean death. It's just that's how we conceptualize it, because death is very final. It's a threshold you can't come back from. So if you're going to let an idea die, then it feels or looks in your mind sometimes like the death of a person, at least your idea of that person. So
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm not a crier, but
oh, are we hitting?
Yeah, that was very heavy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Actually,
I'm gonna cry. Don't do that.
No.
Oh,
my coffee instead.
I know. It's coffee time. I'll just say this. We'll change the subject, but on the same subject. I don't cry very often. I just don't, but I do. I mean, cry occasionally. One thing that gets me, and it's a weird thing. You remember I think it was Tobey Maguire, the Spider-Man 2. I think it was Spider-Man 2. It's the scene where he saves the people on the train and he's shooting out all the webs and he's there and he stops the train and he passes out and they catch him and they bring him in, and gently, and the slow music and the panning camera, and they're handing him hand over hand and they put him down. They're like, he's just a kid. I got a son his age. I get tears at that moment every time. These people who are like, this guy just about wrecked himself to save us, and they're just so grateful. And that makes me, I get awful clapped at that scene. That's the kind of that hero moment of where people like really appreciate something. And I just had that same feeling with you. I was like, I feel like Spider-Man. So anyway, that's a long story short on that one. Before we wrap up and maybe talk a minute afterwards, do you feel like we covered everything important? Were there some specific elements that we didn't quite get into you were curious about?
No, I think we were very thorough.
We read all the messages on the wall. I think we did.
Yeah.
Right? I love that. It's a great analogy.
On the right-hand wall, absolutely.
We sure did. We hit that right before we got out the door. Yeah, well, that's it. And as I said, I always talk to people a couple of minutes after to make sure things are kosher. So what I will do now is just thank you, Dana, for joining us. I really appreciate talking to you. It was a good experience for me, and I'm glad you're satisfied by how things went.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll just say to everyone watching, please like, share, subscribe. I'd love to do this as my day job. I have a podcast now, website. Look for links in the description. And thanks for joining us on another episode of Dreamscapes. Thanks for listening.